The earliest Tamils were settled people who tilled the ground and raised crops of various kinds. The ancient Tamil society from time immemorial was comprised of different sets of people involved in different occupations. Among the different castes and tribes of South India, the Nadars occupied a distinctive position by enduring extensive changes in the course of its prolonged history. The Nadars were known for their traits called Santranmai, that is, nobility, because they were capable of controlling various prospects and pursuits of life in a noble and acknowledgeable way. The Nadars were originally known as Santror. Through etymological corruption, Santror became Shanar. The Sangam literature finds plenty of references to the term Santror. There are certain references to Santror in Tolkappiyam, the earliest Tamil grammatical exposition. Pathitrupathu refers to the Santror as a warlike tribe. Subsequently, Purananuru mentions the Santror, who came in chariots. There are innumerable chances for considering Nadars as Santror, though it was corrupted into Shanar in a colloquial form. Besides the textual evidence, the inscriptions also shed light on the antiquity of the Nadars. The Nadars were people who helped the Jews when they came and settled in the Chera country. Kollam Syrian copper plates also mentioned Shanar. The terminological similarities point to the fact that the Santror or Santrar are the ancestors of the Shanar. The Shanars were a group of people from a particular community with subdivisions. All of them were generally known by a common term called Nadars. The Nadars claim that they have a glorious past. In the very ancient period, the Nadars were the rulers of the land. Some of them held various higher positions in the administration. Under the Cheras and Pandyas, they were landlords. Under the Nayaks, they became small landholders, and under the Polygars, they were appointed as tax collectors by the administrators in their Teri regions. They were treated as people belonging to the Valangai group. The Valangai Nool claims that they were warriors. The Valangai warriors traced their origins even back to the days of Karikala Cholan. In due course, the Nadars were reduced to servitude and pushed into the wilderness by the immigrants. It's unclear what caused their downfall. They were not only deprived of their land but also relegated to the lowest rank of the social hierarchy. When poverty and starvation haunted them, they moved to the forest and hilly tracts and resorted to the most hard and dangerous professions, like climbing the tall palmera tree to extract its sap. Those who crossed the sandy coastal region with their group and family settled in the coastal regions amidst palmera forests. They used those trees as their means of life. Palmera climbing became an important occupation of the Nadars during their downward march from the Chola region to the southern Pandya region. Palmera climbing is an occupation centered on economic and commercial pursuits. Nadars of the sandy coastal Teri regions, known for Palmera forests, are associated with Palmera climbing. The availability of Palmera forests assisted the Nadars in utilizing them for their trade, economic purposes, and prospects. As the Palmera has 800 types of uses, the Nadars have a full-fledged life associated with it. The Nadars utilized all the parts of the tree effectively because they were aware of the utility value of the different parts of the Palmera tree, from root to fruit. Toddy tapping for the production of an intoxicating liquor called Kallu was a common occupation carried out by the people who inhabited the sandy Teri regions. Most of them were engaged in toddy tapping and jaggery making. The Palmera climbers, called Panayaris, were treated as an occupational group. Till the middle of the 19th century, there was no possibility for the Nadars to make progress. The rigid caste system and social structure did not give them any freedom in society. The Travancore princely state pushed them into the dungeon of slavery and considered them a polluted class. Even the government imposed heavy taxes and suppressed them. Also, the government exploited them by imposing forced labor. This kind of free service was called ulium. Around 1822, there were a series of communal riots between the Nadars and Nayars. Earlier in 1895, when Nadars struggled for their right to access the temples of Kamuthi, there were riots in Kalugumalai, followed by a series of communal disturbances that occurred in Shivakasi in 1899. Revolt was generally defensive, socially liberal, and forward-looking, more concerned with restoring what they had lost of a golden past. Vaikunda Swamigal, a native Tamil saint who lived in the present Kanyakumari district, formed an organization called Samathuva Samajam to fight against social inequality and the shortcomings of the state administration. He tried to introduce purity and simplicity in worshipping God. Even then, he inspired the Nadar community through his works, Akilathirattu and Arulnul against social evils. Long before the genesis of popular socio-religious reform movements, Vaikunda Swamigal gave the clarion call to the oppressed communities to liberate themselves from the clutches of the caste Hindus. Tirukural inspired him about equality and the art of good government. The work of Vaikunda Swamigal and his movement for the upliftment of the Nadar community were praiseworthy. At the end of the 19th century, Nadar's economic position steadily increased and they wished to acquire social status. But their attempts were foiled. They realized that they should be organized into an association. The collective efforts of an organization would be stronger than individual efforts. This resulted in the formation of the Nadar Mahajana Sangam in 1910. The first Nadar Sangam conference held at Poriyar expressed their loyalty and devotion to the Emperor of England, Edward. In the succeeding conferences of Nadar Sangam, resolutions were passed demanding the representation of the Nadar community in the Madras Legislative Council. Following the government's order regarding the census, Sangam's Executive Council decided to request that the government adopt the term Nadar instead of Shanars for use in all government records. The main aim of Nadar Sangam is to encourage and help all endeavors for the spread of education and enlightenment among the people. The idea of a scholarship program was developed rapidly in the history of Nadar Sangam. The Nadars, who engaged in trade and commerce, built Petai for the betterment of their economic prospects. As there was no safety on the roads for the traders during those days, they constructed Petais on the trade routes, where they could stay with their carts and bullocks. The rapid and frequent movement of goods from one place to another involved the engagement of a large number of carts and bullocks, besides the construction of new Petais. In the beginning, trade was carried out mainly on jaggery, fish and salt. Then they started trading in tobacco, cotton and groceries. They went to the extent of starting a bank called Nadar Bank for their financial needs. Today, the Nadars were one of the most enterprising communities in South India.